Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Finovate. I've been looking forward to this all week. I hope you all have had a wonderful 4 days. For those that have been here all week, I think this is my fifth Finovate conference. It's one of the highlights of the year for me, particularly New York. I'm glad I'm following Tim. That was fantastic. They told me he made it through like 62 slides in 35 minutes, and I didn't feel that way. That was fantastic. And so you all have got a good basis of education already, just based on the last 35 minutes in artificial intelligence. So keep me honest, as I'm going to reiterate some points that you were hearing from Tim, which I thought were outstanding and really spot on in how we've been thinking about this and trying to frame up this topic as Accenture with our clients. And I was looking at the list of the companies that demoed in the first couple of days, and it looked like we had at least 4, maybe 5, I mean, I'm probably off by a bit, AI-related companies. And I don't think that's a surprise to any of us. We hear more and more about this topic. Some would say we're at, are we beginning to crest on a hype cycle related to AI? And I don't think so. I think we're at a place, and I'll speak to a few of the foundational dynamics that have been going on that are really making this meaningful technology that we've been dealing with for well over 20 years. And there were some great examples that Tim was bringing up where we've been seeing this, and we're seeing it at a point where at a cost-effective level, we can begin to really take advantage of this in our financial services institutions and in the industry as a broader group. Yesterday, or earlier this week, I went to our folks at Accenture Research, and I was like, give me some perspective on levels of investment and sort of deal activity in this AI space for financial services. And they came back to me and said, and this is analysis that we do off of CB Insights data. I know many of you probably look at the CB Insights data. We do some overlays on that. And we were looking through that information earlier in the week, and we were coming up with a number of around like $6 billion that have been invested since 2010, so in the last almost 7 years, and like a 23% year-over-year deal growth from 2014 to 2016 in this area. And then we were, and I was like, okay, look out further, like how much revenue do we see coming related to this space? And I would say of the enablers of AI into financial institutions. And we think just like within the next 2 to 3 years, globally, that number could be up around $150 billion. So we're talking, very, very significant opportunities for this technology to become a core, beyond a core enabler, but a real impetus in perhaps driving new products and services across financial services, which I think is super, super exciting, very, very, and it's going to continue to be an intense time. So we at Accenture, this in let's see, middle 2016, we launched a strategic growth initiative around artificial intelligence. We have we run roughly 6 strategic growth initiatives, which means that these are big focus areas for us as a company. It's where we place our investment bets, and we run these on a multi-year basis. So artificial intelligence is one of our big 5 strategic growth initiatives. And as we came into the middle of 2016, we began to think about, okay, let's dimension this space further. Let's try to define it. There's a lot of good perspective out in the world around what this means. So we, and I think this just reemphasize, it echoes a bit of what you were just hearing from Tim. So first, it's about sensing, so this acquiring, identifying, recognizing, analyzing structured and unstructured data, images. You saw that the dog is the dog cat, that area, which is, and then certainly audio, text as well. Comprehending, so this is understanding, this depicting information into outputs that we can drive insights, knowledge. Acting, so completing a task of a defined process and then getting some insights and comprehension from those. And then this new catalyst that's essential to AI is this ability to autonomously learn, adapt, improve at increasingly lower costs. So that spectrum that was just being laid out, that sort of ANI to AGI, that getting to this learning aspect of the technology. So. And I hope that as you're studying on your own, or as you're diving in and experimenting or bringing things into the marketplace to support your business, that you're working on all these various dimensions and thinking about how they come together. So we've been defining these 5 levers to really create value today in the financial institution. And each lever represents some tangible benefit. We've been trying to push ourselves hard to where can we show, where can we model, where can we create that business case to support really taking these capabilities to scale. So first is intelligent automation. And I'd say this is where the breadth, I spend more of my time and my team's time in this zone right now, or these first 2 zones. And with all of our clients across financial services. So let's create value through a set of these cognitive capabilities that enhance traditional automation. And it's that enhanced traditional automation that's the key bit. And this is, we're able to drive efficiency is a big element of this step right now. So, and I feel like in the work I'm doing directly with clients right now, we're just at that point where I've got more and more clients saying, okay, I've got my robotic automation bit. I got my first 3, my first 10, my first 20 automations into production now. I'm getting into a flow, I'm getting comfortable. How do I make this smarter? What's the next step? And for those of you that have been spending time with the automation providers, you can see in their roadmaps, or they're actively now bringing forward functionality, which is bringing the intelligence into intelligent automation. And then there's other great providers that have been in the marketplace that are beginning to say, I can connect in meaningful ways to these automation providers to provide intelligence. And after I go through these 5, in the spirit of Finovate, I want to highlight a few fintech companies that have come through our Fintech Innovation Lab, which is a collaboration we do with the Partnership Fund from New York City. We have 4 innovation labs around the world, Fintech innovation labs around the world. New York was our first, London, Dublin, and Hong Kong. And we started in 2011. And we've graduated now 150 fintechs from all those Fintech Innovation Labs. And we've been out in the exhibit hall, some of my colleagues from the lab. So if you have a chance later, stop by, they can tell you a bit more. So intelligent automation is first. Second is this enhanced judgment, which is leveraging the AI capabilities to augment the human. This will be human in the loops, another term that I've been hearing more in the marketplace as well in this regard. And so this I think is very exciting, is you were supporting, improving creativity, effectiveness of human decision making. The third is enhanced interaction. So let's create these immersive and superior digital experiences. In our tech vision for 2017 for Accenture, if you've read that, you see us reflecting on AI as the new UI, and we're getting at this area of enhanced interaction. And this also is where I put the chat bots, the virtual agents, which have been an important, I'd say, kind of, in my terms, has been kind of an on-ramp for financial institutions into this space. Intelligent products, this is exciting around, where are there a new class of products and services that are coming forward to really accelerate growth, speed, quality. And then lastly is enhanced trust. So where can AI be used to really improve the relationships in the organization, employees, customers, societies, and a lot of the reg tech efforts that are focused around AI, this is where they plug in. So let me give you a few examples from graduates from our Fintech Innovation Labs into these various areas. So first of all, in intelligent automation, one is narrative science. Narrative science is an advanced natural language capability. They are a fantastic tool if they have structured data, taking structured data and bringing meaningful stories out of that structured data. So how do you get structured data? Well, you could have an automation that's going and grabbing data from a variety of different legacy systems and putting that into one structured data set from which narrative science can build a smarter capability. One example. Enhanced judgment, I have two. One is Forward Lane, who I think some of those guys have been here this week, or they might be here today, and Untapped. So Forward Lane is about enabling and helping the judgment of the financial advisor and providing greater productivity for what they're doing. New York-based company, sits in the rise today. Encourage you all to reach out to them, learn more about them. And then another is Untapped, which is about helping the IT organization within the financial institution do a better job of matching talent that they have in the company to the appropriate projects or agile groups that are existing. So it's just improving the judgment and the capability. Enhanced interaction, Casisto, an excellent virtual agent that has a meaningful AI component to them. Again, New York-based, grad from our lab. Intelligent products, D-Metrics, you're going to hear from the CEO of D-Metrics later today. And I mentioned D-Metrics in this area because their capability allows you as business individuals to really help develop more rapidly products that have an AI component to them. And then lastly is enhanced trust, and on that front is Detectica, and Detectica is about doing better monitoring of your employees in your financial institutions with a machine learning-based mechanism to look for potential fraud, potential bad behaviors, and give the management team, the leadership, better insights into those zones. I'm going to skip forward and just give you one more view, is this how to get at the enterprise value. And you'll see this growth customer, sustainability and trust, profitability, and there's different enablers that need to be in place to really make that happen. And this gets to why is AI such an exciting opportunity right now. The computing power is there. It's more accessible. It's at a lower price point than ever before. Data, we got to have data. Big, massive data sets, particularly to make machine learning relevant. So there's a broader question of those financial institutions that are going to accelerate faster on the machine learning front are going to be those that have done good work over the last 5 years in terms of getting access to the big data sets. Ecosystem, what you all are doing here, being engaged with the community. Experience, this is where I feel like we've got a bit of a crisis right now in the industry, is there's so few really excellent individuals that have the AI talent. And so it's like, how can we nurture that more? How can we get our folks in our organizations more engaged with the technology? And then lastly is, of course, and that leads into talent. So these are the few of the bits. Looking forward to talking to y'all more. I think I may have eaten into a little bit of your time, I'm sorry. But I'll turn it over to you.
Next up, we have Audrey Solomon from WalkMe. And also we have now been joined by Pini, who will grab a seat over there. Thank you, Audrey.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name's Audrey Solomon. I come from a company called WalkMe. So I'll be touching on a little bit more of our technology. It'll relate a lot to kind of what you've heard overall about the AI space. But overall, for those of you who don't know, WalkMe is a digital adoption platform. And what I'm going to show you today will highlight kind of what that means. But overall, we're enabling companies, businesses, to empower their users to properly use all the tools and platforms that they're engaging with every day, both at work and personally. So in thinking about financial tools, banking applications, things like that, our platform is going to help users use that in the best way and adopt all the features that you're adding into those. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the future of UX and what that means. But at a basic level, we believe that the future of UX revolves around simplicity. And what's the problem with simplicity? Well, fundamentally, things aren't simple. So looking at something very classic, something you interact with probably on a pretty frequent basis, is a remote control. I have one here. It's pretty simple. This is a Roku remote. Pretty simple, a couple of functions. But more likely, your coffee table looks something like this. And this is great. The reason for this is fantastic. You can do so much with your TV. It's amazing what's happened since the 1950s when remote controls became available. You can fast forward and rewind and use your DVR and switch to Netflix and HBO. So of course, there has to be a complicated tool to do all of that. And probably you're not even using all the tools available to you. I know I'm not. So similarly, software platforms, CRMs, HRMs, all the platforms that you're using internally every day are also incredibly complex. Not because people don't spend tons of time making a good user experience, but because there's so many things we can do. We can use our computers and our phones to do everything from manage an entire customer lifecycle to updating all of our accounting, to interact with people within our company and in our social lives. So of course, all these functions aren't going to be right on the home page. So why does that matter? Who cares about complexity? Well, complexity is incredibly expensive. Think about all the time and money you're spending to train your employees on how to use those platforms. The support costs for your external platforms when people don't know how to log into your app or don't know how to use bill pay. And they might know how, but it's also a matter of making sure they're aware of those functions. You spend millions of dollars creating a new feature or updating your entire website. You want to make sure people actually use it. So what I'm going to show you now is something that WalkMe does to simplify the user experience. So I've pulled up here Salesforce, but WalkMe works on anything. So it doesn't have to be Salesforce. It could be any of these apps we're talking about. And in order to simplify the experience, imagine with the remote control example. If I had someone that could sit right next to me on the couch every time I wanted to watch TV and say, well, you should actually click on this, or you should use this function, or if you want to watch a movie, this is the best way to do it. Well, similarly, WalkMe is doing that for platforms. So you'll see this widget that says Walk Me Through kind of in the bottom right there. So that sits within the live platform. This isn't a simulation. This is my live instance of Salesforce. Let's say I'm working at a bank and I need to update some information in the system, and I don't know how to do it. Perhaps it's a function I don't do very often. And somebody taught it to me 6 months ago in my new hire training, but I was not paying attention, and I probably forgot. So I can go in here. Let's say the function is to create a new price book. Once I click on that, what you'll notice is this balloon that pops up. And now as I actually interact with the live platform, this isn't a video. I'm actually doing this on my computer here. It's going to tell me exactly where to go to find that. So it's scrolling me down the page. It's finding this relatively hidden button. It's not very obvious. We can't have every function on the home page, right? And it's guiding me through every step. And these balloons and the content in them is completely configurable to your business process. We realize that every company does things differently, so that's where simplicity becomes even more difficult. Somebody transfers companies. They may have used Salesforce before, but they probably have no idea how to use it at their new job. So let's take this one step further. Let's talk about contextualization. So it's great. We have all this guidance on how to use the complex remote, how to use the complex platform. But what if I told you that instead of the remote control having all these buttons, the remote control could change based on whether you're sitting on your couch or you're in your kitchen. So I pull up my remote control and I'm sitting in my kitchen and it's the morning and there's one button and it says, watch local news. Or the remote control knows that if I'm in my living room and it's 9 p.m., I want to watch Law & Order. So contextualization is a way to use all these parameters and learn about your users and use that predictive technology we've been talking about to surface the ideal user experience. So something that's contextual that you're doing every day, Googling, right? You Google the word Microsoft written in this way versus using the ticker symbol, and you get totally different results. And that's because Google has taken the millions, if not billions, of searches that users have done around this type of search and figured out what exactly they're looking for based on the way they search for it. And they give them different content. So what I'm going to get into now is kind of what we're doing in the contextualization space. So how many people here use Waze or Google Maps? Yes, awesome, everybody. So imagine you are rushing to work, you have your coffee, and you're trying to read your brief, and you're trying to get directions to a client meeting, and you open up Waze, and all of a sudden Waze asks you to rate their app. This is the worst time to ask you that question, because the last thing you want to do is have any disruption in getting to your meeting. So you're probably going to close out. But what if Waze knew that that was a terrible time to ask you, and instead asked you that question when you're standing at a corner, perhaps you're early to your meeting, and you're just sitting there and kind of waiting for the right time to go upstairs, maybe it's an interview. That's a great time to ask you to rate their app, and they're going to get a lot more engagement and a lot more responses to that question. So bringing this kind of into the financial space. This is based on a real customer. I've used a different bank app here to kind of retain their privacy, but we had a customer come to us, and they had a high volume of support tickets around users not being able to log into the app. So they enabled Touch ID, which is what a lot of apps are doing, to make that process easier. But this only works if users actually turn on the Touch ID function and enable it, which requires them to understand that option's available and then actually learn how to go in and do that enablement. So this pop-up is something that WalkMe put into the app. So we're able to use our technology not only to build this app, the pop-up in the app, but also then to use our technology and our learning to decide when to pop that up to the user. So we show the user this, and then we show them exactly how to get through the process. We show them where to go, how to turn it on, and then let them know that it's been enabled. And this is great, so long as we can pop up at the right time. So what WalkMe is doing is using hundreds of parameters to figure out exactly what the optimal time is to display these types of pop-ups and notifications and engagement to the user. So this is more than just A/B testing. We're A/Z testing hundreds of things to figure that out and optimize kind of when we pop things up to them. And this is contextualization. This is figuring out the perfect remote control or the perfect platform experience based on what users don't even know they want. We're using things like location, device type, language, whether a user is moving around, if their phone is facing down or up. We know so much about the user that they don't even know and that you don't even know you need to test. And with that, we see performance that is exponentially better. We see tons of engagement, spikes in engagement that otherwise cannot be found. So I want to show you one more thing about how we're kind of bringing this contextualization into the workplace. So what I have here is my calendar. So as I mentioned, WalkMe can work on any platform. It's not limited to Salesforce or anything of that nature. And within this platform, I think you can see kind of at the bottom right here, a small button. So say I'm an employee, and I click on this button. I'm in my calendar, which is something I use every day. And this is an example of what we're doing with chatbot technology. So WalkMe is asking me what they can do to help me. I'm going to tell it that I need a vacation. It's going to ask me which dates. Let's say I want to take a vacation on September 29th. So with contextualization, WalkMe knows not just that I want a vacation, that I'm tired, but that I'm actually asking for PTO, and then I'm doing it on that date. And we use ADP internally, but this, again, would work on any platform. So WalkMe's recognize what I want to do, and it knows which system I need to go in to do that. Think about all the systems you use. How hard is it to keep track of which system you use for what project or function? So WalkMe's telling me I need to go into ADP, taking me from my calendar into the live app. And now it's actually going to self-execute that walkthrough for me. So I'm not touching the computer. It's not a video. That's a real browser. And it's going to the right place, clicking on the right functions, and then actually injecting the request into the system. And it's going to tell you that I don't have enough PTO, so everybody here knows that I've taken all the vacation I have for this year. But that's my real ADP, and that's my real calendar. That's something we use internally all the time. So that's contextualization. With that, and kind of everything I've showed you today, you're seeing that WalkMe is using this technology to figure out how users interact with platforms and how to optimize their experience. And to kind of conclude with something we follow internally, We really do believe that moving forward, it's not people that have to understand software. There's too much to understand. There's too many platforms. We're interacting with so many of them. There's no way we can know everything that they do. So we believe that it's on software to understand the people. So thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to be talking today about bridging the gap between marketing art and data science with AI. And so just to give you some context, this session is going to be about marketing. It's a marketing technology that is also applicable for financial services. So let's go. OK, great. So a little bit about myself. I'm the founder and CEO of Optimove. Started the company back in 2009. It's actually my first job. I started the company out of university and been growing the company ever since. The company has also been growing me, and together we have this journey. And started the company back in Tel Aviv. Today we have offices in London and New York. I live in New York. And let's talk about what we do in Optimove. So we are a science-first relationship marketing hub. That means that the science first is kind of like our main approach that we choose to solve marketing problems. And the relationship marketing is about what we do in marketing. We take care of essentially the post funnel. So if you think about marketing and divided to acquisition, everything we do to acquire new customers. And once we have a customer, we want to start the relationship marketing. We want to start, some people call it CRM marketing, retention marketing. There's a lot of names, but we chose as a company to focus on that side of marketing. Some facts, we worked with around 250 customers. We are 150 strong in the company, and most of our lives we've been a bootstrap, raised money last year. That's about Optimove. And the story I want to talk about today is kind of like take you through this evolution of a problem. So I've been having, me and the rest of the product people in the company, we've been having this one problem that kept haunting us for many, many years. And this is what we call the overarching challenge that was always there. And the problem was, and it has to do obviously with AI and a lot of the trends that go on today, is how do we make the power of data science more accessible to CRM practitioners? And if you break it down even more, we saw that within our customer base, a lot of users are way more advanced than others. And we wanted to kind of like, shorten that gap. And so the first question is, how can marketers better utilize technology to become CRM masters? In our realm, we want to have more users being a lot better. And the second thing is something we call the price of generalization, which is, I think it's probably this meta concept that if you think about it, a lot of what AI is doing has to do with the price of generalization. So how can marketers avoid the high cost of generalization? So this is kind of like our initial approach, which I call the fallacy. And the fallacy was, what if we had this machine that, on one hand had all the available marketing actions, all the available campaigns that we can do for our customers, all the promotions, all the offers, all the content that we can offer. And on the other side, we had all these micro segments, which is very, very small, homogeneous groups of customers that our model creates automatically. And then we would just kind of like match them together. We would iterate and look for the best marketing action for every micro segment every time. In this utopic world, we would have complete automation with no cost of generalization. The reason we would have complete automation is because we would test it and iterate it, and essentially the marketer would not have to do a thing, and we would not pay the price of generalization because the segments are micro, they're small, right? Let me kind of like dwell on the point of price of generalization. If you even think about medicine, when you get treated because you belong to some kind of a big group, right? You show a symptom, you are of a certain age, of a certain race, of a certain genetic history, and from that point, you get treated. But it's still pretty crude, right? A lot of people get mistreated, and in medicine, they still don't know, right? Everything is statistical. And as science progresses, it's easier for us to eliminate this big cost of generalization, right? And I'm obsessed with this question. Like whenever I see, if you get standardized tests, right? How many people don't have a high GMAT score, but still super smart and would be amazing employees in your team, right? So this price of generalization is something that humanity is paying all the time. And the way I see one of the roles of AI is to get rid of that and to be smarter and smarter. Maybe in the future, they'll know that they can treat us based on a set of bacteria that I have in my stomach. And as a result of that, it puts me in such a small segment that the treatment is going to be so precise and accurate. So the reason this thing couldn't work, right? So the fallacy, the reason it couldn't work is because we sit as a company, we are doing marketing, right? And in the realm of marketing, today you have two sides, right? Before it was purely art. Nobody had any science, anything to do with it, right? And marketers were kind of like, there was this known saying, 50% of the money I spend in marketing is a waste. I just don't know which 50%. But today with digital, this thing goes away, and all of a sudden data science has been introduced to marketing. And let's think about those two worlds, and I feel this tension there, right? They collide, basically, because in the data science world, you look for, it's very rigid, you look for predictors, you look for correlations, for causations. It's a sharp world. Everything is black and white. Whereas in the marketing world, in the art of marketing, like how can you tell if somebody's a good marketer, right? It's your opinion. It's about storytelling, it's about copy, it's about aesthetics, it's about many different, it's about ideas, creativity. So these are different worlds, and I think that once I understood the difference between them, I realized why the fallacy couldn't work is because basically when our customers, and each one of you, if you do engage in marketing and you run CRM campaigns, essentially what you're doing is you're starting a conversation with your customers. And once I realized that, all campaigns are conversation starters. That's what it is. A birthday campaign is like, it's a good reason to start a conversation. That's what they do it. If I'm launching a new brand and it's super exciting, maybe it's a good reason to start a conversation. And the really good marketers and the really good CRM organizations are the ones that start meaningful conversations. It means the timing is right, the context is right, it's relevant, they start one when there's one to be made. But this thing cannot be completely automated by a machine. And this is why the fallacy couldn't work. We saw that there's so many campaigns, so many creative campaigns that could never come from a computer. The idea to start a campaign must be a combination. And because of this tension, we chose a different approach. We chose a combined approach, which is also, by the way, people, when they predict the future of AI, they always say that it's not something that's going to replace, I mean, there's many theories, right? But I champion the theory that says it's not going to replace us, it's going to complement us, because the traits of machines and humans are so different than we should use data science, machine learning, AI, however you want to call it, to empower us and make us better, okay? So once we realized that, we divided the types of conversation starters to 3 types of conversations, and we actually named them. The first one, we call it mute predictors. Mute predictors are things you find in the data, but they don't help you start a conversation. And I'll show you a few examples. The second one is verbal predictors. These are the ones that we as a company will look for more and more, and we want to find more and more. These are verbal predictors. This is something you find in data, and you're like, oh my God, I should really talk to this segment of customers. I just understood what it means, and it's so exciting. And you actually got an idea from the data science. And the third one, we call them mute conversation starters, where over there, I think it's still kind of like probably 80% of the campaigns. These are conversation starters that come from people, right? From things that happens in the world, from the weather, politics, our competition, whatever that's happening in the world, all the information that computers still don't have, and they cannot crunch data in a narrative form. There's no semantic understanding of computers, and this is why humans are so much better at that. So let's look at a few examples of mute predictors. So mute predictors, in this example, it's examples from e-commerce, but there's many examples in financial services. It's all roughly the same thing. We find that people who return items in e-commerce, they're better customers, because if you return items, you're more engaged, and probably you can see that you can return, so you're probably going to come back. But once I understand this, it doesn't help me to start a conversation in terms of a CRM campaign. I'm not going to email the customer and say, hey, it looks like you're returning items. What about, there's nothing for me to say. I will use it operationally to make the returning process very smooth, so that I can support these customers and get more high lifetime value customers. In the same way, we find that people that buy a variety of women's and men's items together, these are better customers, but again, it doesn't give me a way to start a conversation. In the same way, in the first order, if somebody buys a bigger variety of items, it also indicates that these customers are better. Again, I want to build maybe my purchasing process to entice customers to buy more items, but again, it's not a conversation starter. But this one is a conversation starter when I find a really interesting group of high risk of churn customers that are VIPs. So for my VIPs who are about to churn, if I get signals, for me, it's a reason to start a conversation. Like, hey man, what's going on? Here's something for you. I don't want to lose your business, right? And you can do it creatively, so that's a reason to start a conversation. And another one, which is something I made up, but I believe that HBO is doing it like that. So I was watching the series Westworld, which is actually interesting given the topic that we have today. And I stopped at episode 4 because the show scares me, which is also a bit of a paradox given what my company does. But the show scares me, so I stopped. But they probably have in their predictive analysis, they know that people, when they complete a show, they're more likely to stay subscribers, right? Because if you start, you know how it's like, you never open the thing until the next Game of Thrones season comes along, and then like, should I keep it throughout all this time? So they always want you to have more shows. So they try to entice me to complete the show, which is it's a good conversation starter. It's like, hey, what's going on? You know, Westworld is so amazing. Why don't you go back? And let's talk about mute conversation starters. These are the easiest, right? So seasons change. This is one of our customers, Adore Me. It's springtime, probably not right now. They're going to email their customers about warm pajamas. You know, it's summertime. They're going to talk about bathing suits. This is another one of our customers, Happy Socks. They have this new type of local hero, different local heroes from different countries, 15 countries, they design their own socks. So it's a great reason for them to start a conversation because they just came up with something creative. And it goes on, and we have one from music, and you know, obviously when something Leonard Cohen passes away, which is very unfortunate, but it's a great reason for them to start a conversation. But our approach, and just wrapping it up, it's something we call OptiBot, which is our own bot. And essentially what it does, it puts the marketer in the center in 2 ways. One way, we have these one-click actionable cards, which show the marketer ideas and things that they can do, and automatically by clicking on them, the system operates and does things for them. And the second thing is something we call a self-optimized campaign, which is really a nice example of the marriage between data science and the art of marketing, where the marketer would design the experiment, but the AI will find the best action, the best variant for each one of the microsegments. So there's no one winner in A/B testing. There's essentially many, many winners for many, many different microsegments. If you want to think about it in a simple term, imagine that, you know, in the election, you could have had, you know, Hillary as the president of California or New York, or even different districts and counties, but it's, you know, I don't want to talk about anarchy, but essentially it's, in A/B testing, in marketing, it's easier, right? So thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Can you guys hear me? Good. While they're swapping laptops, I just want to say I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to try to take this time. It hasn't started yet. Awesome, free time because they're setting up laptops. But I'm going to try to take this time and in my presentation, I want to attempt to describe exactly what is AI right now and really what's going on at the nugget, right? So in addition to being CEO of Clinc, I'm also a professor of computer science and engineering. And I'm going to try to use some of those skills to try to explain to you what is AI, what is real AI, and what is not real AI. But it's actually okay if some of the problems you solve don't require real AI. There's a scope of challenge that you can address with approaches that aren't using neural networks. And it's an important skill to recognize when you need real AI, very complicated machine learning technologies, and when you can solve a problem just as importantly with, with other solutions. So we'll talk about what's going on today and what is real and where it's needed. Good. So intermingled in these slides, there's also some information about us, so I'm going to try to work some of that in. Just to show you the team that created Clinc. I'm really going to be very revealing and transparent. So this is a core of our research group. We've spent 5 years in academia together. Both of Johan Oswald, who was just on stage, and Mike Lorenzano graduated with their PhDs out of our research group. Johan's dissertation essentially was in the area of what we do as a company at Clinc, and we started from scratch when we started Clinc. I've been on leave for a couple years, got approved for additional leave for future years, enthralled in the journey of being a CEO. I'll build the slide in real quick. So this is a nice slide I like to use to talk about why we should care. This is my call to action kind of slide. Every time there was a revolution in technology, financial industry fundamentally changed, right? We went from ledgers and written balance books. I don't even know what they're called. But anyway, when PCs and digitization came into the world, transactions were then electronic. Internet came, folks were engaging online banking as opposed to going into branches as much as possible. Mobile came, and then everyone's connected to that bank experience through mobile, and now we have an AI economy. People want to have automated things just appear when they need it, and they want to be able to interact using voice. That's what we specialize in as a company, natural language understanding. Our mission as a company is to reduce complexity in human lives, period, right? We see massive amounts of complexity in the way people engage with their finances and engage with their financial stories, their life, a very important aspect of their life, which is their money. And we thought that we can reduce complexity in the way human beings interact with money, with their financial stories, et cetera. Sociologically, we see intelligence as a person we talk to. Like that's how we're, language, a person we talk to, that's how we engage intelligence. So we thought we can reduce complexity if we can put a brain on your shoulder that you can talk to about whatever you want, and it talks back, and created an experience that was engaging. The problem is, with everything you build today, if you build something for Google, Google doesn't give you the technology they use to build their Google Assist at all. They give you this thing called API.ai to build your skill, and the technology that enables you to build, the experiences you can build on that API.ai stack, isn't the Google Assist. So then you're like, oh, we as financial institutions, we need to have our voice presence, and then you're using essentially a fundamentally not as awesome tech, and so that's what we're solving. So when you use even Alexa stack, right, the Alexa that you actually talk to that comes from Amazon versus the skills are built with different technology stacks. Anyway, so we're going to talk about this, but what we did as a company is we built a technology stack from scratch. We have 9 PhDs in the company that do research in building large-scale systems for AI, and we started from scratch and thought about what are the best solutions available. There are 200 papers, relevant papers, and that's the good ones. There's 200 relevant papers every year about AI, and it turns out that 198 of them can't actually solve real problems in reality, right? There might be two that are actually something that you can make real. Now, our lab produces some of these 200 papers. We can debate as to whether our papers are included in the 2 every year. I hope so. We'll see. But that's part of what we did when we built this stack from scratch, right? We looked at what was possible, and we architected a system. I'll talk a little bit about that system, but to get to the crux of what AI really is and what is different about what we've done, what I've seen Google do for their own internal products, but not what they provide you guys to build your stuff with, is take a completely fundamentally different approach. This is natural language understanding, natural language processing 1.0. Actually, there's been a massive disruption, and this is the important bit. I have a treat at the end. I wanted to do like a little demo and stuff. We'll see if we get there. But there's been a massive disruption. Maybe it is a destruction, we'll see. A massive disruption in the academic science spheres when it comes to natural language understanding, natural language processing. About 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the entire NLP scene was using a certain style of approaches. We call them white box, top-down approaches, where you want to use grammars to represent language, right? You want to use linguistic techniques to kind of capture language and encode that in a computer. You want to build a parts of speech tree, know what the nouns, verbs, and adjectives are, and then be able to reason about what people say. Now, machine learning is a different science than natural language processing. It's a different group of professors 10 years ago. Today, it's not. That's the disruption. machine learning folks, neural network folks, about 20 years ago, were doing some stuff. It didn't really work well. There wasn't enough data. And that was cool, locked in the chest. None of it worked for real problems. We were using some of these, these top-down approaches for the real problems. And then we had a bunch of data, and then machine learning folks rediscovered neural networks and then built completely new, fundamental, interesting neural networks. And really, images is where a lot of this work was done. Started convolutional neural networks to recognize, is that a photo of Batman, is that a cat? A lot of that work. And then some of these machine learning folks started thinking about language and started publishing papers and influencing the research that's coming out of the NLP group. Now, you had two groups of faculty. You had the folks that were doing the old school stuff, and then you had these folks doing this neural network stuff, where there's no notion of nouns, verbs, adjectives in the models. Everything is learned just with data, and features are extracted, emergent features. You're not top-downing. There needs to be a verb and then an adjective, and then a subject and a predicate, and then I need to match it to this thing I want to find in the sentence, this thing. So then you have this rulesy feeling. You feel like you're talking to a DOS prompt, right? Because if you say something messy, that needs to then be encoded as a rule that you have to then talk to, and then you're building these systems, and it doesn't scale, and you don't feel like you're talking to a human in the room. Now, what this stuff does is, when you train this, you're training it just with the data, with the examples of language. And then pathways will be exercised so that when you give it something new that's different than anything it's seen before, there's a good chance the right neural pathway will light up if it's similar to or resembles something that it's seen in the past, right? So when we train these systems, we use a lot of data because we're trying to cover the diversity of examples we hope to see, right? Of examples we expect to see in the market. So you collect data and you get examples. And then the power of this model is when it sees something that resembles any of the examples it's seen, it recognizes it without rules, without keywords, right? We don't use any keywords, any dictionaries, any synonyms in our system. We use something called embeddings. And just to not take up too much time, I'm going to do this in time, it's fine. So I talked about the model, the core tech, right? The difference, instead of knowing what the nouns are and what the rules are, and then being able to have a brain, a neural network that can recognize resemblances, so it feels like a human in the room. You say something messy, it still understands. You do something in a new context, in a new way, it still understands. Now, it's a system you have to build an intelligent assistant. Just solving one problem, there's one problem called classification. That's intent classification. When they talk about intents, they're essentially talking about you have an intent, and then you have 100 things you want to match. And if you diverge too much from that, you break, so because you're not using a neural network, et cetera. But you can use this technology for intent classification. There's other critical technologies that are in the science and not really in production. The Google Brain Project just announced, 2016 rolled out to production in their search engine, uses embeddings, word embeddings, that's it. That's the Google Brain, it's a neural network approach. And so when you search on Google, it'll use an embeddings representation to do that search. That's new at Google internally. We have embeddings all over our system, different kinds of embeddings, sentence embeddings, et cetera. We've got, and that's real AI. That's how you know. If you talk to a team that says they're doing AI, and they're talking about the approaches they're taking, they're talking about moving away from this top-down white box approaches and moving toward this more black box data-driven approaches that are using bidirectional LSTMs, they're using recurrent neural networks, they don't have nouns and synonyms and keywords, then you know you're talking to a group that can actually do the real AI, and they're out there. Anyway, been on the stage. I'm just going to do some pictures and some fun. I'm sorry, Johan. We're not going to get to do multi-language demo. We're going to do French and German and stuff. The power of neural networks, actually, is it makes it easy to support other languages. So pay attention to Money 2020. We're going to make a huge announcement with a partner, and they're going to demo Turkish, and on a pepper, it's going to be, let me not give it away. Anyways, we were on the stage a year ago. We were small. We've grown significantly. This was like our whole team when we launched at Finovate. This is us talking about what we're going to do at that launch, right? You can see Johan, Mike, co-founders. Since then, This is a half of one of our offices now. So we've grown significantly in the last year. You know, the press loves us. We launched with USAA, that's big news. So we're in production. Their Alexa skill is powered by Clinc. It's essentially Clinc stack that you're talking to. And we did this video, it's throwaway, it's worth it. It's like a minute and a half. It's throwaway in lieu of a demo. One thing you don't see a lot of companies do is really try to poke and prod at their technology at their booth. And so we took some video of real people that aren't, there's some folks from Clinc talking to it, but there's also some folks that aren't at Clinc talking to our tech. And the second one, pay attention to this, it's Russian. We don't know Russian, of course, but it's Russian, and he's talking to Fini in Russian. So pay attention, it's really quick.
You will have about $15,000 left in your accounts if you spend $50 on restaurants. In a typical month, you spend about $330.
Могу потратить сегодня вечером на обед.
So we're actually like
Основываясь на ваших привычках, расходов у вас
Russian.
осталось около $112 вашей.
Should I spend $1,200 on a Celine handbag?
Spending $1,200 is more than your usual about $273 on clothing and accessories each month.
You know what? I was in Ann Arbor last month and spent some money on coffee. How much did I spend?
That's a Clinc person.
You've spent $7.38 on coffee shop in Ann Arbor during August 2017.
Cool.
Yeah, that's you know, at the booth, some of the booth action. We just recorded, I thought it'd be interested in this talk. Anyway, I'm over time. Come chat with us at the booth briefly. I really want Johan to have an opportunity to speak in French and German to this technology so you can see that work. And it's been a delight. I hope I was successful explaining AI. Thanks.